I'm writing this because I need to get it out of my head. And honestly, maybe as a warning for anyone else scouring Craigslist for too good to be true deals. I'm a 21-year-old film student, which is just a fancy way of saying I'm perpetually broke and desperate for gear I can't afford. Last week, I was looking for a Sony a7 III. It's a workhorse camera, usually retails for around $1,300 used, but I found a listing for $700. The description was brief. Sony a7 III, perfect condition. Includes 2 lenses and bag. Need gone today. Cash only. Moving tomorrow. It had that classic Craigslist sense of urgency. Usually that's a red flag for a scam, but the photos were high-res and clearly taken in a real living room, not ripped from a manufacturer's site. I messaged the seller, Mark, expecting no reply or a link to a phishing site. Instead, my phone buzzed 3 minutes later. Still have it. Can you meet tonight? I told him I could, but I didn't get off my shift at the campus library until 9 p.m. I suggested meeting at a Starbucks halfway between us. Mark's reply was slightly off. Starbucks is closed by then. I'm packing the truck. Just come to the house. It's easier. I have the boxes here. I hesitated. Meeting at a stranger's house. At night is safety 101 for what not to do. But $700 for that kit was a steal. I'd be saving months of grocery money. I asked for the address. He sent a location in a suburb about 20 minutes out. A place I knew vaguely as being quiet. 9:30 works, I replied. I'll bring the cash. The drive out there was when the first bit of unease set in. The GPS took me away from the main commercial strips and deeper into an area where the streetlights were spaced further and further apart. It wasn't a bad neighborhood, just one of those aging developments where the trees are overgrown and cover the house numbers. By the time I turned onto his street, the only light came from my own headlights, cutting through the damp October mist. I pulled up to the address. It was a small, single-story ranch house with a gravel driveway. No lights were on inside, which was weird. For someone who was supposedly packing a truck, there was no moving truck in the driveway either. Just an old, rusted-out sedan, parked crookedly on the grass. I sat in my car for a second, the engine idling. I texted him, I'm outside. My phone screen felt blindingly bright in the dark cabin. No response. I waited 2 minutes, then 5. I was about to put the car in reverse and leave, when the front door of the house creaked open, just a few inches. A sliver of yellow light spilled onto the porch, and a man's face appeared in the gap. He didn't come out. He just stood there, looking at my car. My phone buzzed. Front door is stuck. Come to the side gate by the garage. I'm in the shed out back, just finishing the bubble wrap. That was red flag number 2. Why would the front door be stuck, and why was he in a shed? My gut told me to go, but my brain was calculating the resale value of those lenses. I got out of the car. The air was colder than I expected, and the gravel crunched loudly under my boots, sounding like gunshots. In the dead silence of the suburbs, as I walked toward the side of the house, I noticed how neglected the property was. The gutters were overflowing with rotted leaves, and the windows I passed were covered from the inside with heavy blankets or cardboard. I reached the wooden gate. It was tall, 6 feet at least, and the latch was rusted. Mark, I called out. My voice sounded thin. Back here. Man, a voice replied. It didn't come from the house. It came from the very back of the yard, muffled and deep. Gates open? Just push. I pushed the gate. It groaned on its hinges, revealing a backyard. That was a graveyard of junk, old tires, a collapsed trampoline, and heaps of tarps at the far end. Stood a small wooden shed. A single light bulb hung over the door. Flickering, rhythmically, I walked toward it, my hand instinctively checking for my wallet in my front pocket. I had $800 in $20 bills. I felt incredibly exposed. When I got within 10 feet of the shed, the door swung open fully. A man stepped out. He wasn't the guy I'd seen in the sliver of the front door. This guy was bigger, wearing a heavy Carhartt jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. He wasn't holding a camera. He was holding a small, heavy-looking gym bag. You got the cash? He asked. No. Hello? No. Nice to meet you. Just the question. Can I see the camera first? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He set the gym bag on a rusted metal table outside the shed. It's all in here. Body, 24 70mm, 50mm prime. I'm in a rush, man. My ride's coming. I stepped closer to the table, but I stopped when I heard a sound behind me. It was faint. The soft scuff of a shoe on gravel. The sound didn't come from the direction of my car. It came from the dark corner of the house I just walked past. I froze. Is someone else here? Just my brother, the big man said quickly, too quickly. He's helping me move the heavy stuff. I looked back. I couldn't see anyone, but I saw the side gate. It was closed. I distinctly remembered leaving it ajar when I walked through. My heart rate kicked into overdrive. The brother wasn't helping move. He was behind me. He had closed the only exit. Let's see the gear, I said. my pulse thudding in my ears. I reached for the bag on the table. The man didn't move. He just watched me as I unzipped the bag. I didn't feel the hard, angular shapes of a camera body or glass lenses. I felt something soft. I pulled the zipper all the way back. The bag was stuffed with old rags and a couple of heavy bricks to give it weight. In that split second, the world seemed to sharpen. I didn't wait for him to move. I didn't ask what was going on. I jammed my hands into my pockets. Not for the cash, but just to tuck my arms in, and I bolted. I didn't run back toward the gate. The brother was there instead. I sprinted toward the opposite side of the yard, where the fence looked lower. "Hey!" the man yelled, his voice losing its calm veneer. I heard heavy footsteps pounding the grass behind me. I didn't look back. I hit the wooden fence at a dead run, using a stack of old tires as a stepping stone. I scrambled over the top, the rough wood splintering into my palms. I tumbled into the neighbor's yard, landing hard on my shoulder in a patch of mud. I didn't stop. I scrambled up, sprinted down their driveway, and burst onto the street. My car was right there, sitting under the lone streetlight. I fumbled with my keys, my hands shaking so violently, I nearly dropped them. I looked back at the house. I'd just escaped. The big man was standing at the side gate, but he wasn't chasing me anymore. He was just standing there, watching. And then I saw the other one. The man from the front door. He was standing on the sidewalk, barely 10 feet. From my driver's side door, he must have walked around the other side of the house. While I was at the shed, he didn't try to grab me. He just stared at me with a blank, hollow expression. As I dove into the car and slammed the lock button, I cranked the engine, threw it into reverse, and floored it. I didn't stop until I hit a gas station 5 miles away, well lit and full of people. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time, breathing hard, my chest aching. I pulled out my phone to delete the messages, to block him, to do anything to sever the connection. But when I opened the Craigslist app, the listing was already gone. "User has deleted this post," the screen read. I tried to tell myself it was just a botched robbery. They wanted the $800 and I got away. A scary story for a Friday night. But it was the realization I had 3 days later that actually broke me. I was going through my sent folder on my email, looking for a syllabus, when I saw a notification from a week ago before I'd even seen the Craigslist ad. It was an automated account sign-in alert from my cloud storage. Someone had accessed my photos from a public IP address. I logged into the cloud to see if anything was missing. Nothing was, but I looked at the recent activity tab. Someone had spent nearly an hour looking through my folders, specifically the folder titled Campus Life. I found a photo I'd taken of myself in the library 2 weeks ago, a dumb mirror selfie I'd sent to my mom to show her. I was actually studying. I zoomed in on the background in the reflection of a window behind me. Far in the distance, I could see a man sitting at a computer terminal. He wasn't looking at a screen. He was looking directly at me. It was the big man from the shed. They weren't waiting for a random buyer. They weren't just looking for $800. They had picked the item, the price, and the urgent timing because they knew exactly who would click on it. They knew I'd be leaving that library at 9 p.m. They knew I'd come alone. I don't use Craigslist anymore. I don't even like being in the library after dark because every time I hear the crunch of gravel or see a car idling a little too long in the street, I wonder if they're still disappointed that I didn't look further into that bag of bricks, or worse, if they're just waiting for the next thing I decide I need to buy. I'm posting this here because I still haven't been able to sleep through the night. And honestly, I just need to know if anyone else has dealt with someone like this. I'm a 22-year-old grad student, and like everyone else in my position, I'm perpetually trying to scrape together enough cash for rent and groceries. I recently decided to move out of my studio apartment to share a house with 3 other people. To save money, moving meant I had to downsize, which led me to list my heavy mahogany executive desk on Craigslist. It was a beautiful piece of furniture, solid wood, incredibly heavy, and definitely a 2-person job to move. I listed it for $150, which was a steal, just because I needed it gone before my lease ended on the 31st. I got a few lowball offers and some flakes, but then I got a message from a user named Arthur. The interaction started out normal enough. "Arthur, is the mahogany desk still available? I've been looking for one exactly like that for my home office." Me: "Yes, it is. Are you able to come pick it up? It's very heavy, so you'll need a truck and probably a second person to help." Arthur: "I have a van. I can do it. Is 9 p.m. tonight okay? I work late shifts." I hesitated. 9 p.m. in late November means it's been pitch black for hours. My apartment building was an old 3-story walk-up with a dim, flickering hallway light and a buzzer that only worked half the time. But I was desperate. I had to be out in 2 days. And the thought of hauling that desk down the stairs myself was impossible. I figured, since I was on the second floor, with neighbors nearby, it would be fine. 9 p.m. is okay. I'm at 422 West Oak, Apri T2B. Text me when you're outside. Arthur, great. Are there many people in your building? Just want to know if I'll be blocking anyone's way with the van. That was the first tiny prickle of unease. Why did he care? If there were many people around? I brushed it off, thinking he was just being a considerate driver, I told him. The street was usually quiet, and he could double park for a few minutes. Around 8:45 p.m., I started clearing the last of the junk off the desk. The apartment felt hollow. Most of my things were already boxed up, stacked against the walls in towers of brown cardboard. The echoing sound of my own footsteps made the space feel larger and more vulnerable than usual. I checked the window. It was raining, a cold, miserable drizzle that blurred the streetlights. At 9:05 p.m., a dark older model Ford Econoline van pulled up to the curb. It didn't have any windows on the side, and the white paint was stained with streaks of rust. It sat there for a long moment, idling, the exhaust plumes rising thick in the damp air. No one got out. My phone buzzed. I'm here. Can you let me in the side door? I messaged back that the side door was locked from the inside for security and he had to come to the front buzzer. A minute later, the buzzer groaned. I hit the release and stood at my open door watching the stairwell. Arthur didn't sound like he was in a rush. I heard his footsteps, slow, deliberate thuds on the wooden stairs when he finally turned the corner. Into the hallway, I felt a physical drop in my stomach. He wasn't the professional I had pictured. He was tall, maybe mid-50s, wearing a heavy, grease-stained parka and a baseball cap pulled low. He didn't have any moving straps, no dolly, not even a pair of gloves. Hey, I said, trying to sound casual. The desk is right here, in the front room. He didn't look at the desk. He stood in the doorway, his eyes scanning the apartment. His gaze moved from the boxes to the kitchen, then lingered on the hallway that led to my bedroom and bathroom. You live here alone? He asked. His voice was sandpaper dry. No, my roommate is just out picking up a moving truck. I lied. It's a trick my dad taught me. Never let a stranger know you're alone. Arthur finally looked at the desk. He walked over to it, but he didn't check the drawers or the finish. He ran his hand along the back edge, then leaned over to look at the floor. Heavy, he muttered. Is that the only way out? The front door? Yeah, I said, my heart starting to thud against my ribs. Look, if you don't think you can move it, I have another person interested. I can move it, he said, but he didn't make a move toward it. Instead, he started walking toward the back of the apartment. I just want to see if the hallway is wider. Maybe it's easier to take it out. A back way. There is no back way, I said, stepping into his path. The hallway just leads to the bedroom. It's a dead end. He stopped, but he didn't back up. He was standing way too close. I could smell stale tobacco and something else, something metallic and sharp. He was looking over my shoulder, squinting at the bedroom door, which was slightly ajar. You got a lot of stuff in those boxes, he said. Valuables, electronics? Just books and clothes, I snapped. I felt a surge of genuine fear now. This wasn't a guy buying a desk. He hadn't asked about the price, hadn't checked the wood, and hadn't brought any equipment. Look, I actually have to head out. If you're not going to take the desk now, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Arthur's demeanor changed. The polite facade he'd used in the messages evaporated. He slowly reached into his parka pocket. My breath hitched. I prepared to scream, to run, to throw whatever was nearest to me. But he just pulled out a phone. He didn't look at me. He looked at the screen and whispered, "Not yet. He's still here." My blood ran cold. He's still here? Who was he talking to? Suddenly, I heard the sound of the van's door sliding open outside. That distinct, heavy metallic clack-sh of a commercial van door. Then the front buzzer of the apartment building started ringing. It wasn't a short burst. Someone was holding the button down. A long, continuous, aggressive drone that echoed through the empty apartment. Arthur looked at me, and for the first time, he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had just won a bet. That'll be the help, he said. Get out, I said, my voice shaking. I didn't care about the desk anymore. I didn't care about the $15. Get out right now, or I'm calling 911. I'm serious. I reached for my phone on the kitchen counter, but Arthur moved with surprising speed. He didn't grab me, but he stepped between me and the counter, blocking me from the phone and the exit. The buzzer was still screaming downstairs. Don't be like that, he said softly. We're just here for the furniture. In that moment, I realized what was happening. They weren't there for the desk. They were scouting. They wanted to know if I was alone, what was in the boxes, and how quickly they could clear the place out. The help downstairs was waiting for Arthur to give the signal that the coast was clear. I did the only thing I could think of. I didn't try to fight him. I lunged for the one thing I hadn't packed yet, a heavy glass decorative bowl on the side table. I didn't throw it at him. I threw it directly through the front window of my apartment. The sound of the glass shattering was deafening. It rained down onto the street below, right near the van. I started screaming at the top of my lungs. Fire, fire, help. People don't always respond to help, but they always respond to fire. The buzzer stopped instantly. Arthur looked at the shattered window, then back at me. His face went pale. The aggressive confidence was gone, replaced by a panicked realization that the quiet street was about to be very loud. Crazy bitch, he hissed. He hit and wait. He bolted out the door and sprinted down the hallway. I heard him clattering down the stairs, nearly tripping over himself. I ran to the broken window glass. Crunching under my sneakers, I saw him burst out of the front door and dive into the side of the van. The driver didn't even wait for the door to close before peeling away, the tires screeching on the wet asphalt. I stood there for a long time, shaking, the cold rain drifting in through the broken pane. My neighbors were sticking their heads out of their doors asking what happened. I told them someone tried to rob me. I called the police. But of course, by the time they arrived, the van was long gone. The Arthur profile was deleted. Within minutes, I moved out that night. I didn't wait for the 31st. I called my new roommates and they came over with a truck and helped me haul everything out. In a panicked, 2-hour frenzy, I left the mahogany desk behind. I didn't want it. I didn't want anything that reminded me of that night. The police took a report, but they told me there wasn't much they could do. The address Arthur had used in his verification was a vacant lot. I thought it was over. I really did. I moved into the new house, which has a heavy deadbolt and a security system. I felt safe until yesterday. I was checking my email, cleaning out my spam folder, when I saw a new message from a burner account. There was no subject line. I opened it, thinking it was just more junk. It was a photo, a grainy, low-light photo taken from across the street of my new house. In the frame, you can see me through the living room window sitting on the couch, laptop on my knees. The message below the photo just said, "The new place is much nicer. No mahogany, though. I've stopped sitting near the windows. I've stopped selling things online. And every time I hear the sound of a van idling at the curb, I find myself holding my breath, waiting for the buzzer to start ringing and never stop." I'm posting this here because I haven't told my parents or my girlfriend the full story, and honestly, the silence in my apartment is starting to feel a bit too heavy. If you spend any time on the tech side of Craigslist, you know the drill. You're looking for that one unicorn listing, the guy who's moving in 3 hours and needs to offload a high-end rig for a fraction of the cost. Last Tuesday, I thought I found it. I'm a junior graphic design student, and my current laptop is basically a glorified brick that overheats if I open more than 2 Adobe programs. I've been hunting for a MacBook Pro M3 Max. They usually go for around $3,000, but I found a listing for $1,010. The description was short. M3 Max, 64 gigabytes RAM, 2 terabyte SSD, perfect condition, divorce forces sale, need it gone tonight, cash only, pick up near the industrial park. The price was a massive red flag, obviously, but the photos weren't stock images. They showed the laptop sitting on a kitchen counter with a specific dented toaster in the background. It looked real. I messaged the seller, Kyle, asking if it was still available. I told myself if he asked for a deposit via Zelle, I'd block him immediately. Kyle still have it. 3 other people messaged. But whoever gets here first with cash gets it. Me. I can be there in 40 minutes. Can we meet at the Starbucks on 5th? Kyle, I don't have a car right now. My wife took it. I'm at the self-storage units on Miller Road, Unit 412. I'm here packing my stuff into a U-Haul. Miller Road is on the edge of the city, mostly warehouses and empty lots. It's not the public place you're supposed to choose. But the U-Haul detail made sense. It added to the emergency move narrative. I went to the ATM, pulled out my entire savings in 20s and 50s, a thick, terrifying envelope, and started the drive. The sun was already down. By the time I hit the outskirts, the streetlights on Miller Road are those old buzzing orange things that seem to swallow more light than they give off. As I pulled toward the storage facility, I noticed the main gate was wide open. Not just unlocked, but pinned back. The office was dark, a closed sign dangling crookedly. In the window, I drove slowly through the rows of corrugated metal doors. The facility was massive, a labyrinth of gray and beige. It was eerily quiet, no sound of a U-Haul engine, no sliding doors banging shut, just the low hum of my own car. I reached the 400 block. Me, I'm at the 400 row. Where are you? Kyle, keep going to the very end. The lights are out in this section. I'm by the silver SUV. My phone is at 2%. Hurry up. I felt a sharp tug of hesitation in my chest. The lights are out is never something you want to hear in a storage facility. At 10:30 p.m., I dimmed my high beams, not wanting to be aggressive, and crawled toward the end of the row. There it was, a silver mid-sized SUV parked sideways, blocking the path. So I couldn't drive past it. I stopped about 20 feet away, leaving my engine running. A man stepped out from behind the SUV. He didn't look like a Kyle. He was wearing a heavy, oversized hoodie with the strings pulled tight, obscuring his face. He wasn't carrying a laptop bag. He was empty-handed. "You the guy for the Mac?" he called out. His voice was flat, devoid of the urgency he'd shown in the texts. "Yeah," I said, rolling my window down just a few inches. "Where's the computer?" He gestured vaguely toward the open door of a storage unit behind him. It was pitch black inside the unit. "It's on the table in there. I didn't want the rain to get to it. Bring the cash. We'll do the handoff and you're out of here." "Can you bring it out here?" I asked. My heart was starting to thud against my ribs. A slow, rhythmic warning. "I've got the cash. But I want to see it power on under my headlights." The man didn't move. He stood perfectly still by the SUV. "The battery is dead, man. I told you I've been packing. There's a power strip in the unit. Just come over, plug it in, check the specs, and leave. I don't have time." For this, he took a step toward my car, just one, but it was a weirdly predatory step. Slow, calculated. My internal alarm wasn't just ringing now, it was screaming. I looked at the storage unit behind him. In the darkness of the unit, I saw a tiny momentary flicker. It wasn't a light. It was the reflection of a phone screen. About 6 feet back, in the shadows, there was someone else in there. "I think I'm good," I said, my voice cracking slightly. I shifted my car into reverse. "The price is too low, man. This feels weird. I'm leaving." Wait, the man said, his tone suddenly shifting to a forced, frantic friendliness. "Look, I'll bring it to you. Just hold on, don't leave." He turned back toward the storage unit and made a quick, sharp, whistling sound. It wasn't a "hey, bring the laptop" whistle. It was a signal. Immediately, a second car, a beat-up sedan with no headlights on, swung around the corner of the 300 row behind me. It moved fast, aiming to pull across the lane and box me in. If they closed that gap, I'd be trapped between the silver SUV in front and the sedan, behind in a dark alley of metal boxes where no one could see me. Adrenaline is a strange thing. It didn't make me feel brave. It made me feel cold. I didn't think about the $1,100 in my pocket or the laptop I needed. I only thought about the space between the sedan and the edge of the storage unit. I didn't wait for the sedan to stop. I slammed the car into drive, cut the wheel hard to the right and floored it. I bypassed the silver SUV by driving over the narrow concrete curb and through a small patch of decorative gravel. My car bottomed out with a sickening metal screech, but I didn't let up. On the gas in my rearview mirror, I saw the man in the hoodie sprinting toward my car, his hand reaching for the rear door handle. He missed it by inches. The sedan behind me tried to pivot, to follow, but it wasn't fast enough. I raced back through the rows, my tires screaming on the asphalt, and didn't stop until I saw the blue and red neon sign of gas station 2 miles away. I sat at the pump for 20 minutes, shaking so hard I couldn't even turn the key to shut off the engine. I checked my phone. "Kyle, where'd you go?" "My brother just brought the charger out. Come back. We'll give it to you for $800 for the trouble." I didn't reply. I blocked the number and deleted the Craigslist app right there. The lingering fear didn't really hit me until I got home. I was carrying my grocery bags up to my apartment when I realized something. When the man had stepped toward my car, I'd rolled my window down, just enough for him to see my face. He'd also seen my car, a bright blue hatchback with a very specific university alumni sticker on the back window. 2 days later, I was walking to my car in the campus parking lot. It was a crowded, well-lit area. But as I got closer, I noticed a piece of paper tucked under my windshield wiper. My stomach did a slow flip. I opened it, expecting a flyer or a parking ticket. It was a printout of the Craigslist ad for the MacBook. On the back, someone had written in black marker, "You have very nice gear in that apartment. See you soon, Kyle." I haven't slept in my own bed for 3 nights. I'm staying at a friend's place on the other side of town. The police said there's not much they can do with a printout and a burner number. The listing is gone. The number is disconnected, and Miller Road doesn't have surveillance cameras. The worst part isn't the threat. It's the realization that they weren't just trying to rob me of $1,100. They wanted me to get out of the car. They wanted me to walk into that dark unit. When I think about that tiny flicker of the phone screen in the back of the shadows, the person waiting for me to step away. From my only means of escape, I feel a physical wave of nausea. I keep checking the locks. I keep looking at the cars that pull into my friend's driveway, and every time I see a silver SUV, I feel my heart stop for a beat. Craigslist isn't worth it. No deal is worth the feeling of being hunted. If a price looks too good to be true, it's not a bargain, it's bait, and I'm just lucky I didn't stay long enough to see what was waiting at the bottom of the hook. I'm writing this from a motel about 3 towns over from where I actually live. I haven't told my landlord I'm gone, and I haven't told my coworkers why I called out. I just needed to get away from that front door. I'm a 24-year-old freelance editor, and about 3 weeks ago, I posted a simple ad on Craigslist to sell a vintage 1970s Pioneer turntable. It was a beautiful piece of equipment, but I needed the cash for my car's transmission. I've sold plenty of things on Craigslist before: bikes, old textbooks, a couch. And it was always the same: a few boring messages, a quick meetup, cash in hand. And that was it. I never expected to become someone's project. The first few responses were the typical lowballers. Then I got an email from a guy named Elias. His message was surprisingly articulate. "Hello, I saw your listing for the Pioneer. I've been looking for this specific model to complete my vintage setup. Is it still in good working order? I'd love to come see it tonight if possible." It seemed perfectly normal. He didn't argue about the price, and he sounded like an actual enthusiast. We moved the conversation to text. Me, yeah, it works great. I just replaced the belt. I'm free around 7 p.m. Elias, that's perfect. I appreciate you taking such good care of it. Quality like that is hard to find these days. What's your address? I live in a small, street-level apartment in a relatively quiet neighborhood. Usually, I meet people at the park down the block. But the turntable is heavy and fragile, so I told him he could just come to my door at exactly 7 p.m. He knocked. Elias was older than I expected, maybe late 50s, wearing a very clean, pressed beige trench coat and wire-rimmed glasses. He was polite, almost excessively so. He stood in my entryway for a long time, looking past me into my living room, while I demonstrated the turntable. "You have a very organized home," he said, his voice low, rhythmic. "Everything has its place. I admire that in a person." I laughed it off, feeling a tiny bit awkward. "Yeah, I guess so. $200? He paid in crisp, new $20 bills. He didn't ask for a bag or help carrying it. He just tucked the turntable under his arm and left. I figured that was the end of it. I locked the door, sat back down, and went back to my work. 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It sounds wonderful. The warmth of the analog sound reminds me of my childhood. "Thank you for letting me into your space." I didn't reply. It was a bit weird, but some people are just lonely. But then, at 11:30 p.m., another text arrived. "I noticed you have a collection of Orwell on your bookshelf. A bit cynical for someone so young, isn't it? I prefer the romantics. You should try Byron." My heart did a slow, heavy thud. When Elias had been in my doorway, my bookshelf was visible, but it was at the far end of the room, nearly 20 feet away. For him to have seen the titles on the spines, he would have had to be staring intently the entire time. I didn't respond. I blocked the number and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up to an email. "I think your phone might be acting up. My messages aren't going through. I was thinking about your bookshelf again. You should really move it away from the window. The sunlight will fade the covers." He wasn't using his phone anymore. He was back to the Craigslist relay email. My stomach churned. I checked my window. My bookshelf wasn't even near the window. To see it from the street, you'd have to be standing at a very specific angle, near the bushes of my neighbor's yard, looking through the gap in my blinds. I replied, for the first and only time, "Elias, this is getting unprofessional. Please stop contacting me. The deal is done." I thought that would be a clear enough boundary. It wasn't. Over the next 4 days, the emails became a steady stream of consciousness. He didn't seem angry, he seemed observant. Oct 12, 3:15 a.m. "I saw you left the kitchen light on tonight. Are you having trouble sleeping? I find that a warm tea helps. Not chamomile, though. Try valerian root." Oct 13, 8:40 a.m. "That blue sweater you wore to the grocery store this morning is a good color for you. It matches your eyes. I was in the cereal aisle, but you seemed in a rush. I didn't want to disturb your flow. I stopped going to that grocery store. I started taking different routes home. I felt like I was constantly being watched. But every time I looked around, I saw nothing. I called the police non-emergency line, but they told me that since he hadn't threatened me or physically touched me, there wasn't much they could do. Just file a report and keep blocking him. But how do you block someone who knows where you live? The digital obsession started bleeding into my physical reality. On Tuesday, I came home to find a small brown paper package on my doorstep. No postage, no return address. Inside was a worn leather-bound copy of Lord Byron's poems tucked into the middle. A Polaroid photo. It was a picture of my front door, taken from the sidewalk on the back, in neat handwriting. The light in the hallway is too dim. It makes it easy for people to hide. You should be more careful. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my couch with a kitchen knife, watching the shadows stretch across the floor. Every creak, every sound felt wrong. It felt like my apartment had become a glass box. The climax happened 3 nights ago. I was in the bathroom, brushing my teeth, when I heard it, the sound of someone trying the handle of my front door. Not frantic, slow, deliberate. Squeak, clack, squeak, clack. I froze. The toothbrush still in my mouth, I crept toward the hallway. The handle turned again, and then a voice, soft, muffled, right outside the door. You didn't lock the deadbolt tonight, did you? I can hear your breathing. You're frightened. You don't need to be. I just wanted to tell you that the turntable is skipping on the 3rd track. I think I need to come back in and look at the needle again. I didn't scream, I couldn't. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. As I whispered my address, I heard footsteps retreating down the wooden porch steps. By the time the police arrived, the street was empty. They found a chair moved under my bedroom window. I didn't stay to hear the rest. I packed a bag, grabbed my laptop, and left. I didn't even look back until I was miles away. I've been at this motel for 3 days now. I changed everything. New number, new email. I thought I disappeared. But this morning, I went to get coffee, and when I came back, there was a notification, a Craigslist alert, for a vintage Pioneer turntable. I shouldn't have clicked it, but I did. The listing was posted an hour ago. In this town, no photos of the turntable. Just one image, a motel door, room 214. My room. The description said, "I've found that the sound is much clearer when you're closer to the source. Don't you agree?" I'm staring at the door now. The chain is on. The deadbolt is locked. Outside, I can hear a car idling. Low, steady, like a record spinning after the music stops. I don't know how he found me. I don't know what he wants. All I know is that I sold something for $200, and somehow it cost me everything. The engine just cut out. A car door opens, and now, footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming closer to room 214. I'm posting this here because I need to talk about it, and honestly, because I need to remind myself that I'm not being paranoid. Most of the stories you read on here involve some immediate, heart-pounding threat, a guy with a knife, a box full of bricks, or a high-speed chase. My experience wasn't like that. In fact, for the first 48 hours after the deal, I thought it had gone perfectly. That's the part that keeps me awake now. The realization that the danger was there the whole time, sitting quietly in the corner of my eye, and I just didn't see it until it was already over. I'm a 26-year-old freelance graphic designer. Last month, I moved into a small, older rental house on the edge of a quiet suburb. It's a great spot, but I was desperately trying to clear out some of my old furniture. To make room for my home office setup, I had this mid-century modern coffee table, real teak, beautiful, but bulky, that I'd been dragging from apartment to apartment for years. I listed it on Craigslist for $120. I wanted it gone quickly, so I priced it low enough to attract a serious buyer, but high enough to avoid the total freebie vultures. I got a message within an hour from a guy named Simon. His message was brief, polite, and perfectly normal. "Hi, I'm very interested in the teak table. I can come by this afternoon around 4 p.m. if that works. I have a truck and cash in hand. Let me know." I checked the time. It was 2:30 p.m. I figured, the sooner the better. I gave him my address and told him I'd be in the driveway. At exactly 4 p.m., a white, late-model pickup truck pulled up to the curb. It was clean, well-maintained, and didn't have any of the creep factor you usually associate with these stories. Simon got out, and he looked exactly like the kind of guy who buys mid-century furniture. Mid-40s, clean polo shirt, khakis, short, salt and pepper hair. He looked like a high school history teacher. "Hey there," he said, offering a small, practiced smile. "I'm Simon. Thanks for being so flexible on the timing." "No problem at all," I replied. I'm usually pretty cautious. But Simon's vibe was so aggressively average that I didn't think twice about leading him into the house. The table was in the front living room, just a few steps from the entryway. As we walked inside, he didn't head straight for the table. He paused, just for a second, in the foyer, his eyes drifting upward toward the ceiling, then toward the hallway that led to the bedrooms. "Beautiful house," he said, his voice calm, almost soothing. "Is it an original 1950s build? They don't make the frames like this anymore." "Solid wood, I bet." "Yeah, I think so," I said, feeling a bit of that pride you get when someone compliments your home. "It's a bit of a fixer-upper, but it's sturdy." "Sturdy is good," he said, finally looking at the table. He ran his hand along the wood, but he wasn't checking for scratches or water rings. He was looking at the way the table was positioned. In the room, and this room, it's tucked away, isn't it? You don't have many neighbors overlooking this side of the yard, do you? At the time, I thought he was just making conversation. I laughed and said, "Yeah, that's why I picked it. The hedge in the back blocks everything. You could scream in here and nobody would hear you." It was a stupid throwaway joke. Simon didn't laugh. He just nodded, slowly, his eyes fixed on the window. The hedge is a nice touch, he said. Privacy is the most expensive thing you can own these days. He paid me the $120 in tens and twenties, neatly folded, not crumpled. He refused my help carrying the table out. He picked it up with a strength that didn't quite match his frame, walked it out to his truck, strapped it down, professionally, gave me a polite wave, and drove off. I went back inside, felt $120 richer, and spent the evening setting up my new desk. I felt productive. I felt safe. The unease didn't start until Thursday night. 2 days later, I was sitting in my living room, the space where the table used to be. Now feeling suspiciously empty, I was looking through the photos I'd taken for the Craigslist ad, making sure I'd deleted the listing. I scrolled through them again, 4 pictures, top legs, manufacturer's mark, and one wide shot of the table, in the room. I zoomed in. In the background, on the far wall, was my security system panel, old, disconnected, but visible, very visible. And then I remembered. Simon didn't come for the table. He studied the house. He asked about the structure, the neighbors, the privacy. He never once asked about the table itself. Not once. That's when it hit me, cold, sharp. He wasn't a buyer. He was scouting. I checked the front door, locked, the side window, closed, but it didn't matter anymore because he'd already been inside, already seen everything the next morning. I found the sketch on the gravel, near where his truck had been, a hand-drawn layout of a house. Not exactly mine, but close enough with notes. Detailed notes, single occupant, weak latch, hedge provides full cover, security panel, non-functional, entry point, kitchen slider. My hands started shaking. He knew everything. I didn't go to the coffee shop. I went straight to the hardware store. Locks, cameras, floodlights, anything to make the house feel safe again. That night, nothing happened, but at 3:14 a.m., my phone buzzed, motion detected. I opened the feed, and there he was, standing by the gate, looking directly at the camera. Not angry, not surprised, just disappointed. Like I'd ruined something. He gave a small salute, turned, and walked away. I haven't seen him since, but I know one thing now. He wasn't trying to break in, not then, because the real break-in already happened. The moment I opened the door and let him walk inside. Now, every time I hear a truck slow down outside, I don't look. I just check the locks, because the scariest part isn't someone forcing their way in. It's realizing you invited them in yourself.